welcome back to Brighter Rays. This week we're looking at Genesis chapter 46. This is part 2 of our study. And we are looking at verses 1 through 5 today. So let's take a look at that. After seeing the wagons and the provisions from Egypt and hearing his son's story of their meeting of Joseph, Jacob decides to travel down to Egypt to see his son. They load up the donkeys, they load up the wagons with all their things, and they begin to head south on the road that heads to Egypt. Before they leave the land of Canaan, Jacob makes camp at the border town of Beersheba. This is not just a convenient place to, stop like an oasis along the highway there. This was an intentional stop. This had more to do with religion and faith than it had to do with geography or just convenience. Remember what Beersheba means to these people, to this family. It was at Beersheba where Abimelech and Abraham made their treaty. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree and held a worship service in the name of Yahweh, the everlasting God. It was to Beersheba that Abraham returned after God spared Isaac with the ram that was caught in the bush. Isaac would live in Beersheba, and he too would make a treaty with the king of the Philistines. Now at Beersheba, God appeared to Isaac and told him, "Fear not, for I am with you, and will bless you, and multiply your offspring for my servant Abraham's sake." Isaac built an altar to God there, and his servants dug a well. Jacob lived with his father in Beersheba, and he was in that place for a long time, and it's also the place where he betrayed his father, and stole the birthright. So in fact, that this is really the last recording of Jacob being in Beersheba was when he ran away, right? When he fled from Beersheba and then ended up going to his uncle Laban in Haran. So there's a lot of family history at Beersheba. It's a place where faith was strengthened. It was a place where promises were confirmed. It's a place of worship to the everlasting God. This is more than just a roadside stop. This is a pilgrimage. Jacob has come here to offer sacrifices to the one true God, the God of his father Isaac, the God of his father Abraham. So they make their way to Beersheba, and while at Beersheba, God speaks to Jacob in visions of the night. God has a message for Jacob that he needed to hear. First, the one who was speaking to him is El Elohim, God, the God of his father. The God who had spoken to Jacob's father, Isaac, at the same place is now the one who is addressing him. Second, Jacob is not to be afraid to go down to Egypt. Why would Jacob be afraid to go? Well, there are a few possible reasons. Jacob is an old man and has already spoken of his death several times in the past. So he already knows his time is beginning to grow shorter. He probably assumed that he would die in Canaan. The reason why he sent his sons to Egypt and did not go with them was probably because of his age. Why didn't he go? He's the patriarch of the family. Why did he keep sending his sons and not himself? It's probably because of his age. And Jacob also knows that his father was planning to, but was prohibited by God from moving into Egypt. Remember that story. Isaac had set his mind to go down to Egypt, but God said, "No, you will not go down to Egypt. You will stay here in Philistia." And that's eventually where he ends up, and then he ends up moving over to Beersheba. Well, since his father was banned, now would it be permissible for him to move there? Would God allow him to move to Egypt, even to go into Egypt? That had to be a question that was in his mind. Was this God's plan? Well, God tells him that it's okay for him to go down to Egypt. Now, the third thing God says is a confirmation of the promise to Abraham. God says, "I will make you into a great nation." This is not a death march that they're on, but will result in Jacob's family becoming a nation. The fourth thing that God says is another promise that God made to Abraham. They will sojourn in Egypt, but God will bring judgment on that nation that they serve, and they will come out with great possessions. God will be with Jacob's family. He was going down into Egypt. as he has already been with Joseph. And when he brings Jacob's family back up, he is promising to bring the family back up again. It's a promise. Now, the final message from God is very personal to Jacob. Joseph's hand shall close the eyes of Jacob, which means that Joseph will be there when Jacob dies. Now, with these precious words from God, Jacob is now ready to take his family and his faith of the one true God into the land of Egypt. Well, that's our study for today. Come back next time and we'll look at verses 6 through 27, and we'll see Jacob and his family entering into Egypt, and we get to see who are these family members, and we can talk a little bit about that next time.